morning, everyone. Welcome to day two. Thank you, Carol, for last night. Thank you, Mr. Williams, for your recommendation on dinner. It's a shame there wasn't enough food. Is the only thing I can say. Yeah, everybody went out hungry. Thank you very much for that. And Brenda, thank you so much for organizing us at all these meetings. You do a great job. Thank you. We are going to adjourn the work session from yesterday. I'm going to move my remarks under new business, so I'm going to adjourn that. We are now going to convene the action meeting this morning, and we're going to start with public comment. And I have, oh gosh, we're really high tech. Now I get to actually see it on the screen. Mr. Stuart Schwartz. As always, we try to do this within 3 minutes.
I see a lot of pressure right there.
A lot of pressure, but thanks so much for being here. Good morning.
Thank you, Secretary Valentine and members of the CTB. I'm Stuart Schwartz, Executive Director of the Coalition for Smarter Growth. We're a 22-year-old nonprofit working in Northern Virginia in the DC region. I also serve on the Virginia Conservation Network Board and co-chair with Tripp Pollard, the Land Use and Transportation Committee. I'm also representing today the 21 nonprofit organizations from across the state that signed a letter of support for Smart Scale in May and transmitted it to the Secretary at that time. I've just resent it last night. To be clear, we strongly disagree with those questioning our nationally recognized Smart Scale prioritization program. I personally met with then Speaker Howell in 2014. I was joined by Tripp Pollard, and the Speaker clearly stated that the prioritization program had to be about far more than a simplified congestion reduction metric. Smart Scale rightly factors in many other important goals of our transportation program, including economic development, land use, safety, and the environment. The fact that we have around $800 million available but $7 billion in submitted applications indicates how important our prioritization program is. The fact that so many billions in projects are being proposed indicates that we also have a very real problem, and that problem stems from poor land use planning that generates too much driving and traffic. The congestion reduction metric should not be overweighted, and land use should remain a major factor. That's because numerous studies have confirmed that building more lane miles for vehicles does not provide lasting congestion relief. In fact, most expanded roads in metro areas fill up again in as little as 5 years. Placing even more emphasis on the congestion reduction factor in Northern Virginia, where it is already the most heavily weighted factor, would exacerbate this problem. Instead, we should be rewarding projects that reduce vehicle trips and the distances we travel by supporting compact, walkable, transit-accessible places. This is why the land use factor is so important. We know from the experience in Arlington and Alexandria and modeling done by the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments that land use changes tied to expanded multimodal transportation networks reduce vehicle trips and vehicle miles traveled, and they certainly stimulate enormous residential and job growth, improving access to job for all levels of our workforce. The COGS study showed that balanced land use, which is transit-oriented development among other things, demand management, bus rapid transit networks, and metro all perform better than expanding our roadways. It improved the network for all users, including those who still had to drive. Those who propose a simplistic congestion reduction metric and ask us to ignore land use as a factor would cause Virginia to squander billions of tax dollars in a fruitless attempt to build our way out of congestion with more and more lanes. We need to maintain our balanced and effective approach that incentivizes local governments to approve land use plans that support reduction in vehicle trips and vehicle miles traveled. Unless we do so, we will choke off economic growth in the Commonwealth. Please maintain the current Smart Scale system and even further strengthen the land use and demand reduction factors. Thank you.
Still have 4 seconds. Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. That was very efficient. Thank you very much. Mr. Pollard. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tripp Pollard. I'm the head of the Land and Community Program for the Southern Environmental Law Center. And I wanted to address 2 major topics this morning. First is Smart Scale, and second is the climate impacts of transportation. SCLC strongly supported the 2014 legislation. Mr. Schwartz mentioned this is a nationally recognized program. We think Smart Scale has done a tremendous amount of good. We work in 6 states, and we use Smart Scale as an example for other states about how to approach prioritization. It's more transparent, it's more objective, and it's more fiscally responsible. So increasing travel options and funding cleaner modes is critical if we're going to meet the needs of Virginians today and as we heard yesterday, a presentation on what things are going to look like in the future. And moreover, with transportation dollars always in short supply, it only makes sense to use cost-benefit analysis rather than political deal-making to assess and fund our transportation projects. Southern Environmental Law Center signed the letter Mr. Schwartz just mentioned, 22 total groups supporting smart scale. I will not repeat his points. I will only say that experience has shown that considering land use today is one of the best ways to reduce congestion in the future. If anything, the weight given to land use should be increased. Although no scoring system is perfect, and there are areas where smart scale could use some tweaks, the system is definitely not broken, as some legislators have mentioned. That claim is wildly inaccurate. We urge you to continue to reward effective transportation solutions and efficient land use that helps reduce solo driving and helps promote multimodal options to reduce congestion, environmental pollution, and other problems. Turning to the environment more broadly, as noted in our comments on the draft 6-year plan you all will be voting on, we're concerned that road projects, again, make up the vast majority of funding. We do note many cost-effective multimodal projects have been recommended for funding, but there is also too much asphalt. The transportation sector is Virginia's largest source of carbon pollution, and every day brings new evidence of the massive toll of the climate emergency we face, and every day we are making the problem worse. All of this, obviously, and what we need to do to address it is not within the CTB's reach, but there are a number of things that I just wanted to point out very quickly for your consideration. We need an aggressive goal to decarbonize transportation. The weight given in smart scale to emissions should be increased. VDOT policies must be revised to ensure a thorough analysis of greenhouse gas emissions is provided for every major project and alternatives to such projects. Performance measures should be established to assess overall plans and projects, and investment in cleaner options such as transit, rail, bicycling, walking, and electric vehicles needs to be significantly increased, and more support given to advancing land use policies that facilitate cleaner transportation. Reducing greenhouse gas emissions is only part of what's needed. We heard yesterday some about resilience and how that will be part of the VTrans study and analysis going forward. We need to make our transportation system more resilient to climate change. In addition to assessing vulnerability and projected costs to infrastructure to a changing climate, it's also crucial that transportation projects do as much as possible not to harm natural features that contribute to resilience, such as wetlands, floodplains, and forests. I know a number of these are already on the radar screen of Secretary, VDOT, and OIPI and others, as well as this board. I thank you for all you do, and we look forward to working to you to address this serious problem.
Thank you. Whitfield, good morning.
Madam Chairman and members of the CTB. I had the flu for the last 10 days, so I'll do my best. I'm Rob Whitfield with the Fairfax County Taxpayers Alliance, and what we want to see is the existing statutes enforced properly rather than new measures being introduced to degrade the priority for congestion relief on existing highways. It seems from what's being done so far this year that a new category based on potential congestion relief of future employment projects has supplanted the existing traffic congestion. And I certainly believe that some of the transit improvements should be made, but as presently proposed, something like 87% of the 200 million plus proposed for Northern Virginia spending is devoted to transit projects. I have been at various meetings in the last 2 years, several on the Potomac Yard Metro Rail Station, and I've also investigated the West End Transitway. As to the Potomac Yard Station, the latest cost estimates I've seen is $370 million, including reintroducing the south entrance, which the city of Alexandria removed last year. Very little of the funding for that project is coming from Alexandria taxpayers. And this is a big problem for me. In other words, if they don't have their own skin in the game, why should the Commonwealth bail them out from what has become an extremely costly project? And one of the major factors influencing Metro Rail is the rise in telecommuting and obviously the advent of Uber and Lyft. Those secular changes in demand have to be properly evaluated before full funding of that project is approved, similar with the Crystal City Metro Rail Station. And then as to Alexandria's West End Transitway, I talked last month with the capital projects director, can't remember his name this morning, and he told me that they had only done very preliminary design, that they're nowhere near final design and cost estimates. And yet, the CTB has proposed $57 million. The city itself was only seeking $24 million as of last May. I have the paperwork here somewhere. And so through some sleight of hand, the potential funding has been increased without proper justification, and to my mind, without the proper analysis of potential demand and costs and so on. So overall, I would ask that a board of review be established to oversee that which is being done in Northern Virginia, because the present process has not worked. And I know you've received a letter from Delegate LaRocque the other day. I only read it yesterday for the first time, but it appears to me from what I've seen that the legislative mandate is not being properly executed in the proposed round 3 scoring. The final point to make is we're talking about funding for projects in 24 and 25. So I don't see there's an immediate urgency for you to vote today to approve that funding for 4 to 6 years downstream. I do think that there should be additional analysis provided by the applicants and by staff to present to this board before making your final decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitfield. I hope you feel better. Let's see. Noel.
Secretary, members of the Commonwealth Transportation Board, my name is Noel Dominguez. I'm with Fairfax County. I just want to take a couple minutes. First, I want to thank you for including projects in the SIP that Fairfax County proposed. First off, our Richmond Highway BRT is going to be along about a 7-mile BRT running from Huntington to Fort Belvoir, and that is going to provide congestion relief. It is going to provide access to transit. It's going to reduce congestion, and it is going to help with the large redevelopment effort in the corridor. We do want to say that we believe the smart-scale process is complex. However, we also believe it has been objective. And Chairman Bulova specifically wanted me to note that we do not request any changes to the smart-scale process or the weighting at this time. And lastly, I just want to say that I think we are all concerned about the lack of transportation funding in the Commonwealth, statewide. Project costs are going up while revenues are not growing how they should be or how we thought they were going to be. Localities, Fairfax County and others are putting substantial money into projects, and we think we need to continue to work with the Commonwealth to address the infrastructure needs throughout Virginia. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was very efficient. That is all we have signed up for today, but we always make time for anyone here who would like to address the board. Okay, thank you very much. Do I have a motion about the minutes? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Thank you. Mr. Hofrichter. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Secretary Valentine, members of the board. I bring before you a request for an abandonment of a frontage road along Interstate 95 in Hanover County. It is a 4/400th section of roadway, serves one property owner. That property owner wants to redevelop, and the road's in the way. The residency advertised, and there were no comments submitted and no requests for a public hearing.
Mr. Brown knows that, is aware of all this. Yes. Mr. Williams, would you like to make the motion? Oh, second. All those in, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. I'm going to say Mr. Donahue, and you're not Mr. Donahue. Good morning, Margie Ray.
Good morning, Madam Secretary, members of the board. No, I am not Dick Donahue. I'll be covering this for him this morning. You have before you an agenda item to adopt the safety performance targets as presented to you all last month and yesterday with some discussion. We took some of the comments that you all provided to us, and we've made some modifications to the resolution. I believe you have a track change version to see where we made changes. And so I request your approval of the proposed targets.
A second? Any further discussion? Thank you for taking all that into consideration.
Thank you.
Today, and for the new resolution. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Ms. Pryor, good morning.
I'm not Mr. Donahue either.
Yes.
I am bringing you a motion to approve the revisions to the consensus scenario that I briefed you on yesterday. As a reminder, those changes include adding the Fifth Street Corridor Improvement Project in the city of Charlottesville and removing the Preston Avenue project, as well as adding the CSX Bridge replacement in the city of Richmond. And I recommend your approval.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Thank you, Ms. Pryor. Ms. Keene. Good morning.
Members of the board, I have 2 action items for you today. First is a limited access control change along Route 501 or the Lynchburg Expressway at Business 460 Timberlake Road in the city of Lynchburg. The new southeast ramp alignment will terminate at the roundabout of the intersection of Timberlake Road and Logan's Lane. A notice of willingness to hold a public hearing was posted in the Lynchburg News in advance on March 17, 2019, and expired 10 days later with no public input. The city supports the change in the limited access control with a letter dated May 15, 2019. This change does not require Federal Highway Administration approval, and the total estimated cost of the project is $6.9 million. I'm requesting CTB approval of this change in limited access.
Mr. Dodson.
Yes, ma'am, appreciate it. This is for the Heritage High School. It was built recently and allow the city to hopefully develop the property through a private owner in the future. So I ask for the motion to pass.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Okay, the second is also a limited access change in the city of Lynchburg. This is along Route 460 or the Lynchburg bypass at the Liberty Mountain Drive interchange. This project will replace an existing connection with a new roundabout at Liberty Mountain. A notice of willingness to hold a public hearing was posted in the Lynchburg News in advance on May 6, 2019, and expired 10 days later with no comments or other input. The city supports the change in limited access with a letter dated May 15, 2019, and this also does not require federal highway approval. The estimated cost of the project is $4.7 million, and I am requesting CTP approval of the modification in limited access.
Dodson.
Mr. Secretary, again, on 2 for 2 here. This is obviously Liberty's had massive improvements and development over the years. This is part of the process. I ask for make the motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Thank you, Ms. Keene. I know Lynchburg's been busy, Mr. Dodson.
Is it busy?
Ms. Pryor, welcome back.
Good morning. I have 2 items for you this morning. The first is my normal monthly transfers, and I recommend your approval.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
The second item is adoption of the FY fiscal year 2020 to 2025 6-year improvement program. I briefed you yesterday on the program. I'd be happy to take any questions, and I recommend your approval of the resolution to adopt the program.
Approval.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Thank you. Mr. Latimer, good morning.
Morning, Madam Secretary and members of the board. This action item is a rail industrial access grant request from Interchange Cold Storage in Rockingham County to be served by the Shenandoah Valley Railroad. The request is for $450,000 in rail industrial access funds. The total investment for the project is $42 million in Rockingham County with 88 new jobs. They're planning on 100 new carloads annually at this point, and staff does recommend approval.
So moved.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Thank you, Mr. Latimer. Mr. Brohl. Good morning.
Morning, Madam Secretary, members of the board. Item number 9 is a resolution for the approval of the I-66 Commuter Choice Program projects. If you'll recall, last month, NVTC Executive Director Kate Mattice and I gave you a briefing on the process. At that point, those allocations and that process was still open for public comment. Since then, that public comment period is concluded. NVTC has taken their action to recommend a slate of projects. It's consistent with what we showed you last month. We have reviewed those projects. We've participated in the process as DRPT staff. We've worked with the Office of the Attorney General to have those projects reviewed and that process documented for legal sufficiency. And at this point, we recommend your approval.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Thank you. Ms. Farmer.
Steve and I bring forward the action on the fiscal year 2020 annual budgets for the Commonwealth Transportation Fund, DRPT, and VDOT. We enumerated those details in presentations last month and this month, and it also outlines the amount in the CTB alternate formula that is being used for its final year in fiscal year 2020 of $271.9 million. We recommend your approval, and we'll take any questions.
I have a motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pittard. What a great job. We appreciated it. Mr. Dudley.
Assistance to 4 items for your consideration this morning. The first is a request for action on street maintenance payments to urban localities for fiscal year 20. Virginia Code requires that the Commonwealth Transportation Board approve an annual rate per category for cities and towns with populations over 3,500. Yesterday, I presented information on the new proposed maintenance payment rates for fiscal year 20. Original projections were that the urban maintenance payment rates would be reduced this year, but after additional allocations were provided to the program, the proposed fiscal year 2020 maintenance payment rates for urban localities remain the same as 2019. We request your approval of this year's payment rates as identified on the attachments to your resolution.
Move.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Item 12 is a request for action on the street maintenance payments to Arlington and Henrico counties for FY20. Virginia Code requires that the board approve street maintenance payment rates for Arlington and Henrico. As noted in yesterday's presentation, original projections were that the street maintenance payment rates for these counties would be reduced this year, but after additional allocations were provided to the program, the proposed maintenance payment rates for 2020 will remain the same as 2019. We request your approval of this year's recommended payment rates as identified on the attachments to your resolution.
At some point, it's been 20 years since I've seen it. It's a comparison for those 2 counties that have been separated out and have a certain appropriation by code. I'd just like to see how they compare with Lake County.
That request before we can look.
But it's been years since we saw the analysis.
We've looked at that before. It's a difficult comparison, but we can certainly grab that information and provide what we can get. Yeah. Absolutely.
Would be great. Anything else? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
All right, thank you. Item 13 is a request from Botetourt County and Salem District for Economic Development Access Program funding to assist in providing road access to 4 eligible parcels in Botetourt Center at Greenfield. The proposed access project will provide a 20-foot wide asphalt roadway approximately 3,000 feet in length extending from International Parkway, that's Route 839, to facilitate the development of 73 acres. The Virginia Economic Development Partnership has provided their support for the request. Botetourt County will administer the project, and Salem District staff have concurred in the project design and the estimate of $906,000. Botetourt County will provide acceptable surety to the department until the county can provide documentation of qualifying capital investment. We recommend approval of this request and a $650,000 Economic Development Program allocation for the project.
Smoot.
Madam Chair, I move approval with the understanding that this is at Greenfield, not Greenville.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Finally, item 14 is a request for your approval of the redistribution of deallocated revenue sharing funds to those priority 2 projects which receive prorated allocations in FY19 and to those FY19 priority 3 project applications which still need the funding and for allocations of the previously programmed revenue sharing funding for fiscal year 2020. A list of all those projects is attached to your resolution. We request approval of the allocations as noted.
Madam Chair, I make this motion, and I think we all ought to feel good about being able to now fund priority 1, 2, and 3 on our list. So we'll start next time with a clean slate.
You are certainly correct, Mr. Whitworth. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Mr. Dudley, you had a busy morning. Thank you. Mr. Caples.
Morning. Madam Secretary, members of the board, I have 2 items for your consideration this morning. First item is order number A50. This is a Stanton District Bridge Replacement Project on Route 11 over Interstate 81. We had 7 bidders on this project. The low bid did not exceed the range of the evaluative estimate, and after conducting our analysis of the bids submitted, we have determined that they both represent a good market value as well as a good value to the Commonwealth, and we are recommending for your approval.
So move.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
The second project is order number A48. This is a Richmond District project in the city of Richmond, I should say. This is for bridge repair over Route 76 and the CSX Railroad. We had 4 bidders on this project. Again, the low bid did not exceed the range of the evaluative estimate. And after conducting our bid analysis, we find that the bids represent both market value and a good value for the Commonwealth and recommend for your approval.
Williams. Any further discussion?
Madam Secretary, I'd just like to recognize that good competition on both of these contracts today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kasprowitz.
My pleasure.
Mr. Caples, it's going to be a good day.
Madam Secretary.
Mr. Whitworth.
Just as a matter of interest, where we show the estimated construction cost, where the range is usually what percentage on each side of that?
This is the number that's represented is the, we call it the L&D estimate. It's the final submission estimate. And then as I had indicated in previous presentation back in about January, my staff goes through a very detailed process, very similar to the way the contractors bid their, actually prepare their bid. The bid did slightly exceed the L&D or the final submission estimate, but it did not exceed the range of the estimate that we used to compare the bids to.
My question is, what is the range?
The range is 7%.
7%?
7%, yes, sir.
Okay.
Just high. 7.5. If we, correct, if we,
Madam Chair, I think we established the engineer's estimate when we put it in the 6-year plan. Is that accurate? And then later, we have to determine what the market's done between when we put it in the plan and now that we're bidding it. And that's going to be a different number.
the engineer's estimate is finalized at the time that the project is ready for advertisement at that point. That's even after it's in the 6-year plan. So the plan is done, the engineer goes through the quantities, identifies what they think based upon our historic trend lines have been, and sets what we think the project is valued at. That's part of our cost estimating process that we're now going back through and reevaluating. The evaluative estimate that is done by the construction division is an estimate that looks at it in real time, what the bidding prices are and the market environment is willing to pay at the time that the project is out being advertised.
Chairman?
Mr. Miller.
We impose on y'all to give us like a 2-pager on how this works? Because we talk about it about every 6 months, and you explain it again, and then we ask again.
Be more than happy to, Mr. Miller. I think we can resurrect that presentation and boil that down.
Just a short, because we're asked the same questions about every 6 months because we forget, at least I do.
We'll boil it down. I think that we do have a proposal that we're going to take a look and see what's on the bid tabs as we bring them forward to you to say what that range was, so it's a little bit clearer.
Mr. Whitworth.
We'd just like the record.
Won't ask again, Mr. Miller.
I think he was referencing my age. I don't know. I think that's what he said.
Like the record to show that I predicted every question that's come up. In the meeting, I just said, okay, I know this is going to come up. We should do, anyway. Anyway, just thank you. Thank you.
And you knew who was going to ask it.
Well, actually, you know, there's a range. There's a range, so I know.
Madam Chairman?
Am I right, Mr. Cables?
May
Yes,
I point out that neither Mr. Williams nor Mr. Miller made any comments or questions about the rail access fund, so.
Was a hard one, though.
may I say what
Mr. Yates was holding him down over there, and
May I say, however, that what a tremendous job that Mr. Whitworth did last month in explaining how important this project was, and the fact that Deputy Secretary Donahue and I visited the facility, and I thought we had earned that buy-in.
Mr. Miller didn't want to hear it again.
Miss Mitchell over here.
did earn it.
I have Miss Mitchell over here handcuffing me.
There.
Oh.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Move.
Do I have a, did we vote? We did. Okay, so sorry. Didn't realize that we were coming back. Thank you. I lost complete track. Thank you, Mr. Miller. See, you did listen. And so with that, we are now under new business. And I would like to cede my new business to Mr. Jeff Allen from the Attorney General's office, who I am so sad to say that he is retiring. And so, Mr. Allen, I know that you have an introduction to make this morning.
I do. I am very happy, Madam Chairman and members of the board, to introduce Julie Whitlock. I want to preface my remarks by saying I was not on the selection board, but I have known Julie for almost 28 years, adding up those years mentally. When we were younger and she was a toddler, we practiced in the same law firm here in Richmond, and we've had a friendship ever since. And Julie probably more deliberately fell into the procurement arena than I did. When I was in law school, I thought it was about the worst subject in the world, and I couldn't imagine how anyone would spend their days in contracts all the time. But as I aged and became more mature, a nice, dry, comfortable office, a cup of coffee, and a computer screen with contracts on it was my idea of an exciting day in legal practice. So I have enjoyed every minute I've spent in this area. After 32 years in the military, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I got called back by some friends in the transportation office who remembered me when I was a law clerk. But Julie will do exceptionally well, and you're in exceptionally good hands. My problem is I turned 66 in August, and I'm running out of time to be on my boat, spend time down in Irvington with Dixon, run into Shep at Something Different lunch counter where I first met him, and I'm relishing those days with the love of my life. Cindy and I have been dating for about 50 years now, if you include high school. And we're really looking forward to having time with our grandchildren and getting together on the water and touring this great state and driving some places as well. And I've got to say, for Southwest Virginia, I was given that area when I first came into the office. And some smart aleck from another area of the state said, "You got the dog of the state." Well, let me tell you, I enjoyed the people there more than I enjoyed people in a lot of the other areas of the state, and it is a magical place. So part of my retirement is going to be to tour that area as well. But Virginia is such a diverse place, and we were talking this morning, Scott and I can't imagine a better place in state government to be than in transportation. I feel sorry for all the other areas of the Commonwealth. This is such a dynamic, exciting area with 7 agencies, everything from the Space Flight Authority to the Port Authority to what is affectionately known in our office as the 800-pound gorilla VDOT, okay? And the prospects of increased passenger rail. I mean, it's such an important area and such an exciting time to be a Virginian. And so, Julie, I'm going to hand it off to you on Friday and not look back. But in many ways, I have very mixed feelings, and I'm a little jealous that you'll get to continue while I'm out on the boat.
Thank you. If you'll just stay at the podium for a minute. Julie, we do welcome you, and just know that we're here to support you, and just thank you so much for saying yes. We appreciate, is there anything you'd like to say while you're there? But don't leave, Mr. Allen.
I'm just very grateful for the opportunity. I'm really looking forward to moving into the transportation arena. I will say that after working with Jeff in private practice and doing a couple of other things, my first experience as a state employee, my first experience as a full-time state employee was actually working with DMV. So I have kind of been on the side.
You like it when DMV breaks you in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I've spent the last several years in technology and procurement law. So looking forward to the new challenges in the transportation section. And yes, I'm very sad to see Jeff retire, but looking forward to working with everyone.
Thank you. So, Mr. Allen, I have to say, I know that you prepared us a little bit. We'd be in meetings and you'd say, well, you know, I'm getting closer to retirement. And for some reason, I thought it would be years off into the future, and the time has come. Is your last day next Friday?
Friday.
Oh, it's this Friday.
For those that were in the military, it's 2 days and a wake-up.
Can I say how happy you look? However, that for me personally, that I have not been in government, even going back to serving in the House of Delegates when Jeff Allen was not a part of my life in some way. And so you have been such a dear and loyal and trusted friend all these years. I think it wasn't too long ago, I called you on an evening, and you were in the attic, and you answered your phone.
Actually, I was in the crawl space, but close to the same.
I called him again and said, okay, Jeff, we're 40 contracts behind. I need your help. And just how you jump in and you're so positive, and you have made our team better. And so we're very grateful to you. I do have a resolution that I would like to read that we will get framed for you so that you have it from us. And so if y'all would just indulge me for a moment to read some of this. Whereas Jeffrey R. Allen has served in the office of the Attorney General for more than 11 years. I didn't realize that Joanne Maxwell actually hired you, which was exciting to know, but in the transportation section, first as an Assistant Attorney General and subsequently as a Senior Assistant Attorney General and Section Chief. And whereas pursuant to his service in the transportation section at AOG, Mr. Allen has represented the Commonwealth of Virginia in a multitude of transportation-related matters and issues, and whereas in his roles of Assistant Attorney General and Senior Assistant Attorney General, Section Chief, Mr. Allen has diligently represented and ensured the diligent representation of all agencies and boards in the Transportation Secretariat, including the Department of Transportation, the Department of Motor Vehicles, the Department of Aviation, the Department of Rail and Public Transportation, the Commonwealth Transportation Board, the Motor Vehicle Dealer Board, and the Virginia Commercial Spaceport, not to mention the Virginia Port Authority. Whereas Mr. Allen joined the Office of the Attorney General in February 2008 after having served as an attorney in the U.S. Army Judge Advocate General Corps and having performed legal duties in the Virginia Air National Guard, providing more than 30 years of service to his country. Whereas as he approaches retirement, the Commonwealth Transportation Board wishes to express its appreciation to Mr. Allen for his years of service to the Commonwealth of Virginia, and in particular for his years of service to our entire Secretariat. Now therefore be it resolved that the members of this board extend to Mr. Allen their highest commendation and appreciation for his years of outstanding service to the Commonwealth and its citizens as a member of the Office of the Attorney General, and express our best wishes to you and your beautiful wife in the future, in your future endeavors. We thank you. Mr. Whitworth.
If I may make a comment, inasmuch as Mr. Allen lives about 500 feet from one of our largest special structures, I would suggest that he officially be made the local ambassador and the Lancaster County manager to oversee and receive all local comments for the Norris Bridge.
Is there a second?
Second. Vote by acclamation.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. I didn't mean to cut you off, but just thank you so much for everything. And you will be dearly missed. I am sure that you will be following us at the meetings, live streaming us as we go. We'll do some shout outs to you and Quentin. So, but anyway, thank you. I believe that, in addition to that, Mr. Whitworth, I'm sure you intended to make a motion on the resolution.
I sure did.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you again. With that, is there anything else?
Secretary, a couple of things I was going to say. First of all, looking forward to everybody being in Lynchburg next month. We have a meeting at the Virginia Hotel. It goes back, I believe, to 1913, and we had a $30 million renovation recently. And then we have an event. We're going to have a social hour and dinner at the Academy of Arts that just opened up recently. It's a gorgeous location, and some of y'all were there before the renovation. So it is called the Hill City, but you don't have to walk down a hill or up a hill to get to everything. The other thing I was going to say is that thank you for us to go over, from my personal opinion, over the smart scale process during our meetings rather than added on additional time. Some of us already had booked, the Monday before, so I appreciate that fact. The other thing I was going to say is I travel a lot, like a lot of us. I've noticed a lot of, we had a lot of growth in the Commonwealth with all the rain we've had, but I know, and I work with Chris Winstead, our local district engineer, a lot, and I have this thing about, our signs being partially covered. And I'm saying that from the ground up, it looks pretty good, but this sounds like pretty trite, but branches from trees are obscuring signs I've seen throughout the Commonwealth, different places. So I've encouraged our district engineer to, and it doesn't sound like a lot, of course, but with somebody with poor eyesight, pouring down rain, et cetera, I have this thing about the signs being either partially or totally, blocked out. The other thing is, I was going to say, to wrap it up, I really appreciate the smart scale process. It's the first time that I've been a part of it. I think it was very objective. I know there's been some criticisms. You always find criticisms, of course, but from my area of the state, it was well done. And if you were at the public hearing, like all the public hearings of the rest of the districts, it was well received. Everything could be improved, of course, but I think it was, from an outsider, I was not part of the group that passed the guidelines of the smart scale process, but from a business standpoint, a professional standpoint, it's a good system. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks.
Dodson. And I think it's been the goal of those of us who've lived through this process. I'm sorry that, I don't know if Hap Connor's in the room, but we have lived through many hours of this, days actually of this. But our objective is always, the question is, how can we make it better? How can we improve it? We are always open to that. And that's part of why we want to put some serious time in the July meeting. So thank you for those comments. Anything else? Okay, we stand adjourned. Mr. Williams, how'd I do? There you go.